And I'd like to call up Whitney Lauritsen. Hi, Whitney.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Folks, let me tell you a little bit about Whitney, because Whitney is not from the design industry, as we do sometimes with several of our speakers, although we like to find people who are doing really, really great work elsewhere. And Whitney is a podcast host and a social media advisor, and a content creator and influencer herself in lifestyle practices. And she's of the body and the mind and the spirit, and making the world a great place and a healthy place, a mindful place. And she regularly coaches on and presents around the industry and the world on social media trends, influencer partnerships, content monetization, and so forth. An amazing mind who escapes us all because she's not in our industry. She's had this great experience working with Google and Facebook and the Scripps Network and various business programs. And she runs a lot of wellness events and industry events through YouTube Space and at the Natural Products Expo, which was founded by a friend of mine, Whitney. I don't know if I ever told you that. And Doug was his name. I can't remember, but early on. And anyway, she's here to talk about how to maximize your impact on social media with minimum amount of time, and to really get the most out of what's going on in 2021. So Whitney, you're muted right now. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to bring up your presentation. You all good?
I'm ready. Thanks so much. I am so excited about this. I have been speaking for many years, and I always get this nervous excitement before I present. And one thing that's challenging, as things have shifted, is the energy difference between in-person versus online. But I'm happy to say that I will be presenting at least one of the upcoming in-person events. So I hope to meet some of you in person. So as Adam said, today I'm going to talk about how to create impact with social media and beyond. And my objectives for you is that you gain some clarity, feel empowered, and create a plan so that you can level up your social media strategy. I'll be going for about 35 minutes or so with time for questions. And I really encourage you to get out a notebook or like physical, if you have one. It could be a scrap piece of paper. It could be your phone. It could be your computer. I'm a big note taker, and I feel like it always helps me implement things. But if you're not like that, I encourage you to get something out, because we're going to do a little bit of an exercise during this presentation. You can also use the chat in the comment section if you have questions anytime. So if something comes to mind, or you can write it down for the Q&A at the end. I'll leave at least 5 to 10 minutes for that. And then if there's anything that you want me to pause on, please let me know, and they'll communicate that to me, because my aim is to make this interactive so that you are really getting something out of this. All right, a little bit about me. Adam already shared some. I'm a podcast host, social media advisor, well-being coach, and creator. I've been making videos since at least 1996. It's a big part of my childhood. And I've been an online content creator since around 2003. I started blogging. I got into social media around 2008. I think that's when I might have joined Facebook a little bit earlier, but it started to become a bigger part of my life between 2008 and then in 2009, I started creating coaching and consulting offers, and I've been advising people on that ever since. And then I started podcasting around 2015, and my current podcast I launched in 2019, and it's a huge part of my content strategy now. I'm very passionate about that, and it really ties in to some of the trends that I'm seeing happen on social media and marketing right now. One of my big beliefs is that there is no one size fits all social media strategy. So you're not going to hear that from me. I'm not going to give you like a 5-step formula. I know a lot of people like to do that. That's not something that I like to do, because I found over all these years that isn't going to be the same. You're not going to get the same results as someone else. I don't want you to copy someone. I want you to figure out what's going to work for you. And that's one of my big aims today. I also want to reassure you that people, no matter what they do and who they are, what stage of life they're in, where they live, can be influential for a variety of reasons. I think there's a box that we put people into in terms of what works for influencer marketing, for content creation. And you're going to find your place there, either to excel in it further, or if you're just getting started or you haven't felt like it's been working for you, there is a place for you here. So I would love to know, if you would like to interact with me a little bit, to share what your biggest social media challenge is right now. You can type that in the comments or the chat, and we'll pull some over so that I can see if they come up in live time. But this will help me understand and shape the rest of the presentation. Like I said, I like to make this interactive, and I have a plan today, but my aim is really for you to get something out of this. So as you're typing, I'll continue, and you can share that input at any point. First, I want to begin with why social media is important. I'm sure you already have a good grasp for this, but while I was preparing, I found some interesting statistics that I thought were good to highlight. There are more than 4 billion people around the world that use social media each month, and approximately 2 million new users join every day, which I think leads to an average of 14 people every second. So there's always new people to reach. That's something that I've heard a lot over the years. There's this concern that, you've already tapped out your audience, or somebody else already has somebody else's attention, right? There's a lot of comparison and competition, sometimes scarcity mindset around social media. So let's remove that and know that there are new people every second for you. And it's helpful to know that on average, people spend about 2.5 hours a day on social media. They are spending like a good percentage of their day as a whole, but it totals about 2.5 hours. So you have a lot of opportunity to reach them, and they're looking for people like you to help them. We're really going to get into how you can support others through your work on social media, which makes it even more rewarding. And also, for context, the total world population, at least a few months ago when these numbers were updated, is like 7.8 billion people. So knowing that over half of them are using social media, and that's growing, is good to put in context. One of my big aims for you today is to talk about what's working right now in 2021. But I do want to let you know, as if you didn't realize this already, that algorithms are constantly changing, sometimes every month, but usually at least a few times a year for each platform. And that can feel frustrating. That can feel overwhelming for some people, but I want you to feel empowered. It actually can be a really good thing, as we're going to discuss today, because when things change, there's an opportunity for you to get on board with something. But I also bring this up to remind you that I don't want you to stick with the same strategy for too long. And this is one of the big things. I saw some of the comments coming through that you're struggling with engagement. Well, as the algorithms change, you have a benefit to adjust, which could help greatly with your engagement. If you stick to an old strategy for too long that's no longer working, your engagement is going to go down. So one thing we're going to focus on today is how to flow with the new changes. I love this in the chats too. I'm seeing lots of ideas, but not enough time to implement. We're going to talk about that, how to get the maximum return out of minimum amount of effort put into it. Time is coming up often. And then feeling inspired. Ooh, I love knowing that, because I want to inspire you today to get on board with these platforms. And Instagram, we'll talk about. There's also a whole separate presentation about Instagram coming up later on in this conference. So you will have lots of Instagram information. I also want to say that it's helpful to stay on your feet. And one thing I want you to consider as we're going through this is to get support. I'm going to talk about that later on, but keep this in mind. You don't have to do this all on your own. There are so many people, myself included, that are here to help you. And this whole conference is designed to support you. So if you feel overwhelmed, A, know that's common, you're not alone, and B, know there are ways to reduce that overwhelm. And thank you. I'm seeing more comments coming through. Thank you for interacting and sharing all of this with me. All right. So number one that is working in 2021 is authenticity. It's a big buzzword, and connection. And I want you to just think, are you for real? Are you doing this for real? Do you have the right motives for your social media? And are you showing your real self? I believe, and it seems to be a big trend right now, especially with younger audiences, but I think everybody is craving realness over perfection. Engagement is more important in many cases than vanity metrics. A lot of people were consumed with followers, but your likes, your comments, the messages you're receiving, the people participating, the people that are converting into your clients, that is more important than how many followers you have. So one of my other big aims with you right now and my clients ongoing is to not worry about how many followers you have. And actually even the like counts, don't worry about that, because a lot of that is actually related to the algorithm, not related to you. And I also believe that we is greater than me on social media. So when we step away from what we get out of it as individuals, meaning like, what do I get out of it? What does my ego want? How does social media make me feel? But if you focus on how it's helping others and yourself simultaneously by creating that connection authentically, you can get some really great results. And when I talk about authenticity and connection, I want you to think about, how can you express who you are? How can you have fun? How can you share both the highlights, the lowlights, the successes, the hardships? I was going through some of your social media accounts, actually. I don't know everyone that's here today, but I was doing my research. I wanted to get to know more of the people that were attending. And I found that a lot of people are sharing more polished versions of themselves. I want to challenge you to share the less perfect looking, the less perfect photos and videos, audio, if you're doing that, and really tap into who you are. You can do both. And people really want to see the behind the scenes of your life and the realness, the humanity, especially in 2020 and 21. That's been really big. That's because social media is all about trust. And people as a whole are drawn to things that feel genuine and personal. So if you focus on that, if you focus on that quality and worry less about the algorithm, social media is actually going to feel easier for you and more impactful, which will lead to more engagement. And that's also moving you away from these standard ideas of what you feel like you should be doing to tapping into what you really love to do and who you are, what feels right for you, versus trying to force something that might not feel right and might feel uncomfortable. The other thing that's working really well is being intentional and creative. This is through your communication, like really thinking about who you are, why you're doing this, how is this helping people. A lot of people will post on social media just kind of like not giving a lot of thought. They're going through the motions. They're just trying to get it done. And I think a huge reason is that A, they don't fully know how to strategize, and B, they feel overwhelmed. So it's like, how quick can I get this done? It's easy to just follow somebody else's formula or my old formula. But like I said, if you're not being intentional, you might not be as authentic, and you also might not be fully tapped into what's working right now. So if you are paying more attention and you are doing things that are unique to you and unique to the moment, unique maybe something you haven't tried yet before, that can be extremely effective. And also focusing on being relatable. That is one of the biggest things that's working right now in 2021 is people want to feel like they can relate to you. And in 2020, this is really uncovered because as many of us were shifting and a lot of tough things were happening around the world, people were craving connection and realness. They weren't wanting things they couldn't relate to because it made them feel worse about themselves. And one of the big aims of social media, I believe, is to make people feel better and uplift each other. I am also, as Adam was saying, really into health and wellness and well-being mentally. And I didn't include this, but another thing that I think is really rising, or I see rising so much right now, is a focus on mental health and wellness. And if you're relatable and you're either sharing your struggles and your hardships or sharing the things that you've worked through and how you've overcome them, it boosts people up, and that'll make them feel more trusting and more engaged and more connected to you. I saw this quote from another one of the speakers in, I believe it was an article that she wrote. And this is where we're going to get into an exercise. So get your notebooks or anything to write on ready. I loved this line from Jana, who said, it's helpful to identify and communicate your brand's soul essence. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to find out in a moment, but I want you to think about, do the people on social media know who you are? Is that being conveyed through your posts? Right? So as we move away from what you feel like you should be doing, you can tap more into who you really are, and that's your brand soul essence. So let's do a little clarity and brainstorm exercise. So get out that notebook. We're going to get clear here. I want you to brainstorm. We're just going to spend a few minutes on this, and you can do more later, but just do the things that are coming off the top of your head. Even if you've done it before, you can write down the old things, but maybe something new will come up for you. Number one, and this doesn't have to be a full sentence, this is just for you as your notes. What are your core values? Your personal core values and your brand's core values. Those could be a few words that are coming up for you. Values matter more than ever before. And this is a big thing in 2021. People want to know who you are. They want to know what your brand stands for. They want to understand that mission. And I encourage you to choose at least one word that maybe isn't right off the top of your head. Maybe push yourself a little here, because a lot of people get into the rhythm of like their elevator pitch with this. But if you can go a level deeper, maybe start with a word that you commonly use, and then think of some synonyms for it that can help you get deeper into that value and truly the core, right? Number two for you, as you're writing this down, is how do you help your clients? What are you helping them achieve through your work? One of the big things to reflect on is, how do you want them to feel through your work and through your content? So you can write down some feelings, you can write down some results. I think typically when you think of how you're helping someone, you're focused on what you're doing for them. And by the way, if anyone wants to type this in the comments of their chat, I can read it along with you, because I'd love to know too. And maybe others who are watching right now will be interested in what you're writing down. How are you helping people? And I think right now in 2020 and 2021, that people want to feel happy, positive, and uplifted, like I said. You might be helping them feel more comforted and relaxed, proud of where they live. Of course, you know, the interior is especially important because people have been spending a lot more time in their homes, in their offices, indoors, basically, and that might continue for some time. That might shift. Will definitely shift in some way or another. Do they feel good? Do they feel safe? That word safe was really big in 2020, but I think it's an ongoing thing. It's a core human desire to feel safe. Are you helping them feel supported, in control, excited, inspired? So adding those into how you're helping people as you're writing this down. And two more things to write down for yourself is, what are the common questions that people ask you? This is one of the best things for you to focus on with social media, because anytime you know the question that someone commonly asks you, you probably have all these answers. I mean, especially in your non-social media part of your life and your work, people are probably asking you the same things over and over again. You can write those down, try to do at least one question right now, and then you can use that to create content. And then lastly, what outcome do your clients want? And that ties into how you help them, right? But thinking more outcome oriented, this might be a little less feeling, or this might be more feeling. So I'll pause for just 15 seconds or so. If anyone wants to type in the comments in the chat, finish writing down, and then we'll move on. I also love one of the comments that came through as a social media challenge, which is how to position yourself as different to rise above all the noise. Well, the good news is there's room for everybody, and you don't necessarily need to rise above others because there's plenty of people that are going to find you. So that's why this exercise is so important. When people know what your values are, when they understand how you help them, what outcomes they're going to get, that's how you attract them. So maybe shifting it from like rising above to just attracting. And you might be attracting people as well as somebody else. Maybe people want think about this. First of all, as clients, people might work with multiple designers, for example. They might have multiple people on their team, but on social media, they're probably going to follow a number of accounts. So you just need to be one of the accounts that they follow. And that thinking about these things is going to help. So core values that are coming through: integrity, honesty, trustworthiness. Those are so fantastic. I love those words. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to move on to one other element of your exercise right now, which is to do a quick social media audit. I want you to write down or ask yourself, if you don't feel like writing it down, that's fine. How is your social media content supporting the client journey? One thing we're going to get to in a little bit is looking at your funnel. So this is basically a funnel. What is your client's journey from when they discover you or before they discovered you and the results that they want? And asking yourself and writing this down, if you're willing to do that, either, you can do that publicly in the chat or just privately with your notebook. Why do people follow and engage with your content? This is a very important question. And this comes back around to the previous slide here, the core values, how you're helping people, how you're making people feel. That's probably why they're following and engaging with you. And if they're not following and engaging with you, maybe it's because they don't know why. What are they going to get out of it? Maybe you're not conveying it clearly. So take a moment. I'll pause for another 30 seconds or so for you to write this down. How is your content online supporting the journey? How is that guiding people towards the outcomes they want? And either why do you think people follow you? What are they telling you? Like, are they saying things like, oh, your photos are so pretty? Well, maybe you inspire them. Maybe you excite them. You entertain them. Maybe you make them feel safe and supported. Maybe you're giving them information. Do they want ideas from you? Can they relate to you? Do they like your personality? Do they aspire to be you or work with you? Are they learning from you? Are you entertaining them? So take a few more seconds to continue writing this down. Again, if you want to share any of it, I love reading this from you. And we'll keep going. I'd love for you to revisit this beyond this time here together. So what is working in social media? I know you're eager to hear that. Video right now is really working. Video is king. That's actually a term that's been passed around for years and years, but it's really true in 2021. I'd love for you to comment the word video in the chat to let me know, are you using video right now? So just type the word video if you're using video on your social media. Ooh, Jana. Hi, Jana. I know you're using video, Jana. You're doing such great work. And I'd love to just get a feel for how many of you are using video. And first of all, there's no shame if you're not. That's great. I'm getting feedback. A lot of people are using video, lots of comments. Excellent. Behind the scenes, I can't see it all. So the team is conveying this to me. So thank you everyone who's interacting. And by the way, interacting is not just for me and you, but it's for everybody watching here. When other people see that you're using video, that inspires them to use video if they're not already. So just typing that word in the chat is really powerful. So thank you for doing that. All right, let's talk about the two types of videos styles that are working really well. Okay. And styles, I should say, actually length, because I put these in these two different categories. We have the 15 to 60-second videos, which really started to grow with stories. Stories started mainly on Snapchat, then went over to Instagram, Facebook. Now they're on Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We also have the short form video that can go upwards of 60 seconds and actually technically 3 minutes on TikTok now. TikTok and Instagram Reels. Instagram Reels started as 15 and 30-second videos. They've been bumping up to 60 seconds, and TikTok is rolling out the 3-minute long videos. So they kind of fit into the other category too. I didn't list them there. Then we have the separate category of 1 minute to 1 hour long videos, which you'll see on IGTV, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter. And you can take a longer video, of course, and cut it down into shorter videos, or you can specifically make shorter form videos. You don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. You don't have to do all these platforms. One of my big aims for you is for you not to feel overwhelmed, but to know what the possibilities are. All of these platforms are working really well right now because video A is king, and B, these platforms have semi-recently introduced these features. Pinterest is a great example. How many of you, by the way, are using Pinterest stories? Pinterest stories, if I could give you one big takeaway because of the work that you do, is to try Pinterest stories today. Like, that's your homework. Make a video, or you take a video you've already made and put it on Pinterest stories. I have seen immense results for myself and my clients. It's mind-blowing what I'm seeing there. Instagram Reels is also really working well. So if you're not into Pinterest, you don't have a Pinterest account, I assume most of you are on Instagram, make an Instagram Reel. I am also seeing massive results there. Of course, TikTok. And I don't want you to get caught up in how you feel about these platforms. I want you to just try it, because this is really working, and it's a great way for you to A, convey and create those emotions that we're talking about, but B, it also gives you a phenomenal opportunity to repurpose. I imagine many of you have blogs or at least a website with the possibility of blogging. Maybe you blog or guest post elsewhere like medium.com or on other people's websites. You can take those videos that you made and embed them in a blog and then share that in your newsletter. There's an upcoming presentation on newsletters today. I want you to be thinking about how you can make video that you can turn into a blog post that is SEO rich, that will attract more people to you. And then you can share that in your newsletter. Now you've taken one piece of content. And going back here, actually, speaking of one piece of content, this will help with overwhelm. You might look at this list and say, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. How can I possibly do it all? You only need to create one video, and you can distribute it on all of these platforms, including your blog and your newsletter. And that doesn't have to take very long. I would say at most an hour to do all of that. Then you can take that blog post you've created and or your newsletter and share that on social media. So now you've got this cycle of content, and you can take one video, post on Instagram today, Pinterest tomorrow, LinkedIn the next day, and now you've got posts for every day of the week and more. And there are platforms that can actually help you make all of that content very evergreen, which I'll touch upon today. The other thing that's massively working right now in social media is audio, especially live audio. I'm sure you've heard of Clubhouse by now. Twitter has their own version of the Clubhouse live audio style. Facebook, I think, is still working on it. Spotify, I heard, is doing that. Live audio is really big and hot. It's a little early, so don't worry about it too much. If you had to choose between just audio and video, I would say go to video. But if you want to introduce audio in and you want to know what's working right now, you're ready to take on something else, these can be phenomenal for you. They give you another way to build trust. They are long form content. And if you were looking at the video slide and thinking, oh my gosh, I hate being on camera, or I don't like making videos, audio is a great alternative that is equally impactful and you don't have to show up on camera. So you don't have to ever feel like you're camera ready or making great videos. You can just show up with the audio and no one has to see you. And podcasting, I'm very passionate about. I encourage you to consider either starting your own podcast or guesting on other podcasts. It's a phenomenal way to impact people, build all of that trust, get them to know, like, and trust you, but also spread the word about what you're doing. Podcasting is a phenomenal medium that's been around for a long time, but is starting to grow in its influence more and more so. And thinking about audio too, it's a big benefit for you right now because when social media platforms release new features, like all these audio features, they tend to boost you up in the algorithm. And the same thing goes with video, like I was saying. So that's why it's helpful to experiment with these new platforms as they're coming up. You can also transcribe your audio, going back to the repurpose. You can take your audio and transcribe that into blog posts, or take the transcription of your audio and make short form content with bullet points, and you're using your audio as your guideline. So I'm a big fan of repurposing because it gives you big bang for your buck, right? And then, of course, you can share the blog post that you made on social media. All right. I know this came up in the comments. I'm glad that it did because I'm very passionate about making maximum impact with minimum time. So I'm going to give you a few quick ways to do that. Number one, incredibly important for you to get to know your audience. When you know your audience, it becomes easier and faster for you to create content because you're not sitting there wondering what to do. Going back to that brainstorming exercise, you just have a ton of content you just created without you might even realizing it, right? So when you're thinking about the questions people are asking you, what the outcome, the more that you know that, the more you can help them, the more that you can easily create content. And it'll become a flow for you on video, on audio, in text-based posts. So just simply doing more research, listening to them, reading the comments. You can do surveys, polls. You can do live videos, by the way. Live video counts as in the video category. Paying attention. And you can ask them questions. How can I help you? What do you need right now? Just like I asked you earlier, what are you struggling with on social media? That's helping me know you so I can help you. You're teaching them, you're inspiring them, you're connecting with them. And it's just going to help the entire flow and reduce the amount of time that you spend thinking about things. Number two, like I said earlier, is it's really important to focus on your funnel. Understanding the place that social media has in your entire flow. And if you haven't worked on your funnel yet, as a business owner, I think this is incredibly important. At this top of the funnel, so the funnel is literally like thinking about, it's at the top, it's larger and it's getting smaller down. This is just the first three sections of a general funnel. Number one is awareness, right? So you're letting people know on your social media that you have a solution to their problem. That's one of the big aims. You're getting their interest, right? So you're ensuring that they can access information about your company. So you can use your call to actions. You can use the links in your profile to get them to click, and you're guiding them towards that decision. So when you're focused on this funnel, it becomes easier. You can actually start from the bottom and work your way up, back up to the awareness. How can you help someone make a decision? Once you answer that question, it becomes easier and faster to create content, right? Number three, incredibly important. One of the easiest, if not the easiest way to create social media content is to simply be yourself by telling your story. You can show up on camera and tell a little story about your business. You can tell a story about what happened with the client. You can tell a story about what inspired you to become an interior designer, do the work that you're doing right now. That you already know. It's authentic. You can stumble through. Somebody said, public speaking is not my forte. That's okay. It takes a lot of practice. For example, like I showed you my timeline, I've been a content creator since 2003, but I've been making video content almost my entire life. It's a lot of practice. The more you practice this, easier it gets. But people don't care if you stumble through. In fact, it reminds me, if any of you watch American Idol, a few weeks ago, there was a contestant who forgot the words to the song. And he literally started crying. He was so embarrassed. And Katy Perry, one of the judges, said, it doesn't matter. And actually, people love it when you mess up. It's okay if you stumble because it makes you human. So that makes it so easy. It doesn't have to be overly produced. It just needs to be thoughtful. You can be vulnerable. You're tapping into your personal power, your personal story. And this also helps you avoid the comparison trap. 2 more things in terms of making this easier is posting consistently. As I said, the more you do this, the easier it gets. You get into a flow. And you can post more consistently when you have a content calendar, which you can develop through the brainstorming exercises. That's helping you. Every time you just ask yourself, what story can I tell? What questions do people have? That's going to give you ideas for your content. You can plan that out. There's tons of tools online that help you make a calendar. And or you can use a management program, which often have content calendars built in. One of my favorites is Meet Edgar. If you haven't looked into that yet, it's great for evergreen content. Buffer and Hootsuite, you might have tried already. They're great too. Doesn't matter which one you use. They all have relatively similar pricing. They have sometimes free offers. Try them out. It's going to help reduce the challenges you face. And when you can do things like batch content, you don't have to worry about things in the future because you already have it planned out. It's one of the reasons I love Meet Edgar. And lastly, get help. Hire somebody to support you. If you don't have the budget, start budgeting for it, or get a volunteer, get an intern if that makes sense for you. That help will go a long way. You don't have to do it all on your own. Delegate to someone else. An advisor like myself, a manager, an assistant. People like us are there to support you. We can help you research the changes in social media. We can spend time on the platform. We can try out new things. We can reply to comments. Like, we can help you build your content calendar and come up with ideas and pay attention to your audience, do that research, all of these things. If you're feeling as you're listening to this presentation that you don't want to do something that I'm talking about, or it's like, oh, I can't do it. It's too hard. I don't know how. Get somebody to support you. You can get a virtual assistant very affordably. And some virtual assistants are phenomenal at this work. All right. As we start to wrap up here, I love this quote from Zig Ziglar. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after they've had an experience with you becomes your trademark. If you keep reminding yourself of this, how you want people to feel, how do you want to showcase your personality, you are going to see great results from your social media. People will be drawn into you. And then you can start talking more about your business, right? There's a famous way of looking at this by Gary Vaynerchuk, who said it's all about the jab, jab, right hook. The jab, jabs are helping people feel good, giving them freebies, just being of service. And the right hook is then when you say, hey, now that you know, like, and trust me, by the way, I have services I can support you with, right? But when you lead with making people feel good all the time and giving them value, helping them solve problems, it becomes so much easier to convert in that funnel. So we're going to wrap up and do a Q&A for about 5 minutes. But I am here for you beyond this. So you can find me on social media. I have a bunch of social media accounts, but the one I'm using primarily for my advisory work and all that is Whit Lauritsen. My full name is Whitney Lauritsen, but that was too long for, I think, Twitter. So it's Whit Lauritsen across the board on all the platforms. You can email me. You can go to my website. I'd love to support you and talk with you more. This time flew by and I haven't even had the chance to read through the chat, but I'm going to read through it. And if you send me a message, I would love to support you in some way. One thing I was thinking of doing is offering up a free social media audit. So if you are interested in my support, let me know how I can support you and we'll figure out something together, whether it's me offering you up something free or us working together professionally in a paid way. Happy to do that. I truly am here to support you and I hope to connect with you there. I want to encourage you, speaking of people that are here for you, to stay tuned for the upcoming sessions. I'm so excited that Kayla is doing Instagram tips and strategies. So I know a lot of you are focused on Instagram. So go to that session so that you can really do a deep dive on Instagram. There's also an influencer mentor session with Jana, who is here, I think, in the live chat. And then another really important one. I know we're focused on social media, but wow, email is so important. Newsletters are important. So please go to this session too. All right. We have time now, about 5 minutes of questions, Adam, right?
Yes, Whitney.
Let's see if there are any here.
Whitney, before we get to questions, thank you. That was amazing. How real, the thing that impressed me about the way you think about content, social media is making the person, come alive in it, and how everything just needs to be real. And that's amazing. And so I just wanted to, before you took your first question, for you to answer this. You do have a request to be adopted by one of our attendees. So
I'm available for that.
you are available. Okay, there you go. You're available. But you said it, and I wanted to actually say it and reiterate it, that I've recommended Whitney to some folks, people you would even know about, like Clint Smith, from, he works on a lot of our magazines, but a lot of other very big magazines, and, really famous dude. And I really just thought, at any level, Whitney could bring some perspective that sometimes we are a little bit too much in our cave in the design industry to really understand. So yeah, I'm glad you did that, Whitney, and gave out, and I'm glad you'll be at one of our live events coming up. But there were several, there were several questions. They're very specific tactical questions. The last question there that came through here is, my content calendar is a problem because I'm very aggressive with it and I can't keep up with it. So
great question. I'd love to address that.
Yeah.
This is the thing. We get so much in our heads, and this is why anything you did during the brainstorming sections is incredibly valuable. You can schedule time, and I would actually put a timer on. Start seeing how quickly you can get things done for the minimal viable product. Many of us in business know that term. Do that with social media. And that's why video and audio are so powerful, especially live. They both allow you to make mistakes. So if you don't want to do a content calendar, just schedule a live video and show up and just talk about whatever you want. Or wait to get a question and then just use one question as your jump off point. But I'm telling you, when you start doing the research on your audience, you're going to have more ideas for social than you know what to do with. Do not overthink it. It's progress versus perfection, right? The quantity, the consistency. We put so much emphasis on quality, but the trend of social media right now is actually going away from Instagram perfect. I know many of you are designers. You want things to look beautiful. But people want it to be relatable, so it doesn't always have to be perfect, because most people's homes do not look like they do in photos. So actually, if you open up and show the behind the scenes when it's not perfect, people feel more connected to you. So I think if it takes longer, you're probably overthinking it. Give yourself a time limit, and you'll get a lot more done in that time than you realize.
Yeah, and Whitney, another theme that's come through, there's kind of inquiries and questions about people thinking about, how do I position myself to rise above all the noise when there's, thousands of designers who do what I do, who have been creating content for a very long time. You've touched on the answers in that in a lot of your presentation, but maybe you have a kind of wrap story around that.
Yeah. Well, remember, there's room for everyone. I showed you the numbers at the beginning for a reason. There are plenty of people out there, and everybody that's on social media, I imagine. I actually shouldn't assume, because there's certainly the homelessness is an issue. But most people that have access to technology these days are going to have a home, and most people want to shift it, right? So you have to, really depends on the client you're looking for, but even someone that doesn't have the budget or the interest in interior design right now may want it in the future. So my point is, you might see the long tail of supporting someone. And there's just so many people out there. If you get too caught up in what everybody else is doing and how many people they're reaching and how many clients they're getting, how much money they're making, it's incredibly distracting. When you come back to your core value and how you can help people, you will always find somebody to help. And if you do that consistently, you will get results. That's the other big thing that I didn't emphasize enough. Consistency is not just putting out content, but it's experimenting and maybe even honing in on one platform at a time is another strategy I recommend. So I know many of you are interested in Instagram. There's a lot to do on there right now. If you just focus on Instagram Reels for a month and be consistent with that, measure it, see if it's working. If it's not, try Instagram TV, try Instagram Stories. Can you do a little bit of each? Can you repurpose them to one another? When you experiment with that consistently, you're going to get a really good idea of your audience, your flow, your time. And it gives you the more consistent you are with it, it gives you more exposure to people. Most of the social media platforms reward consistency. It has a compounding interest. So just keep going and don't worry. Put on your blinders. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
Great advice, Whitney. I remember when I started with this whole thing and with a wine blog, and I used to have that constant question, yeah, I've been collecting wine since 1985, but there's hundreds of thousands of people who collect wine. And I just started telling stories about wine from my perspective, and crazy things happen. So yeah, it's just start. I think that's your best advice. Just do it.
Yes. And I know it sounds easier said than done, but if I could give any of you one takeaway, it's just, you're probably overthinking it, myself included. So when I catch myself overthinking, I just think, what is the simplest, minimal viable thing that I can do right now to help somebody? Because help can be so simple. Maybe someone just wants to feel good, and this idea of being relatable. TikTok has a younger audience. So when you're researching your audience, you want to know how old they are, what platforms they're using, all of that. Let's just say your audience isn't on TikTok, although I would probably disagree because a lot of people are going in droves to TikTok. So I encourage you to look into it. But what I see on TikTok, since I really believe a lot of trends are evolving out of TikTok right now, is anybody can become an influencer. Anybody can go viral on there. Truly, people who have never had social media experience could literally make one TikTok video and get millions of views. It doesn't happen to everyone and it's not guaranteed, but it happens often enough to show that there are so many people out there to reach. They want to see your content. They want your support in some way or another. So if you just keep putting it out there, you never know what's going to happen.
Whitney, I want to thank you very much. I wish we had more time for you. We will at our live events. You left us with a great thing, which is to try and make somebody feel good. And you made us all feel better today. So I really appreciate you being here with us today, Whitney.
Well, this was amazing. I know the time always goes by so fast.
Yes.
And again, reach out to me, send me a message. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Not just you, Adam, but everyone listening.
I'm aware.
And send me a direct message, an email. I'm easy to reach. Just let me know how I can support you and we'll figure something out. I've got a lot of ways I can support all of you and I'd love to continue. And if I didn't get to your question, just, I'm going to actually save all these questions so that I keep them in mind, but you can just copy and paste your question and send it to me if I didn't reach it and I'll respond. If you send me a DM on Instagram, for example, I'll send you back an audio message so you get a very customized response from me.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Bye-bye.